The moment Dahlia Wilson stepped into Kingsley Jacobs's world, she knew she wasn't supposed to be there. The charity gala at the Grand Riverton Hotel glittered with wealth and privileged diamonds catching light, champagne flowing freely, and conversations about summer homes in places she'd only seen in magazines. As a newly hired event photographer, she was meant to be invisible, capturing moments without becoming part of them. But when she accidentally bumped into him, spilling champagne down his custom tuxedo, invisibility was no longer an option. "I'm so sorry," Dahlia gasped, mortification heating her cheeks as she frantically dabbed at his jacket with a cocktail napkin. "I wasn't looking where I was going." The tall stranger, impossibly handsome with dark eyes that seemed to see right through her, simply smiled. "It's just fabric." "Are you all right?" His kindness surprised her. In her experience, wealthy men didn't typically react with patience when their $1,000 suits were ruined. "I'm fine, but your jacket isn't," she said, still fumbling with the napkin. "I'll pay for the cleaning." He laughed then, a warm, genuine sound that seemed out of place among the practiced social titters around them. "That won't be necessary. I'm Kingsley Jacobs." She froze. Everyone knew that name. Kingsley Jacobs, 32-year-old tech genius who had turned a startup into a billion-dollar empire before his 30th birthday. The man whose face graced business magazines and whose philanthropy was legendary in Chicago. "Dahlia Wilson," she replied, lowering her camera. "And I'm still sorry about your jacket. Consider it forgotten if you'll have coffee with me sometime," he said, his voice casual but his eyes intent on hers. Dahlia hesitated. Men like Kingsley Jacobs didn't date women like her, women who had grown up in foster care, who had scraped together enough scholarships to put themselves through photography school, who lived in apartments with 3 roommates and ate ramen when rent was due. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said finally, taking a step back. Something flashed in his eyes, disappointment perhaps, but his smile never faltered. "Well, if you change your mind." He handed her a business card with his personal number scrawled on the back. "It's just coffee, Dahlia." She tucked the card into her camera bag, certain she would never use it. Yet as she continued photographing the event, she found herself repeatedly drawn to his presence across the room, the way he listened intently when others spoke. How he gently redirected attention to the charity's founder rather than himself, the genuine way he laughed. What Dahlia didn't know was that Kingsley had noticed her long before she'd spilled champagne on him. He'd watched her work, impressed by her focus as she captured authentic moments amidst the artifice of the gala. There was something refreshingly real about her in a world where he was constantly surrounded by people who wanted something from him. 3 days later, after delivering her photographs to the event coordinator, Dahlia received an email requesting her services for a corporate shoot at Jacobs Innovations. The fee offered was 3 times her usual rate. Though suspecting Kingsley's involvement, she couldn't afford to turn down the opportunity. When she arrived at the sleek downtown skyscraper, Kingsley's assistant led her straight to his office on the top floor. "Miss Wilson," Kingsley said, rising from behind his desk, "thank you for coming." "Mr. Jacobs," she replied coolly. "I assume you're behind this booking," he smiled. "Guilty, but it's a legitimate job. We need new staff photos and promotional material. And there are no other photographers in Chicago, none who capture people the way you do," he said simply. "Will you take the job?" She should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries. But the money would help her finally pay off the last of her student loans. "Just the job," she clarified. "Not coffee," he nodded, not pushing further. "Just the job." Over the next week, Dahlia photographed the Jacobs Innovations staff. Kingsley appeared occasionally, observing but never interfering. He maintained a respectful distance, and his restraint surprised her. On the final day, as she packed her equipment, he approached. "Have dinner with me tonight," he said, not as a client asking a photographer, just as a man asking a woman he finds intriguing. "Why me?" she asked bluntly. "You could have anyone." "That's exactly why," he replied. "Everyone wants something from me, my money, my connections, my influence. You're the only person I've met in years who turned down an opportunity to get closer to me." That makes me sound calculating. No, he said softly, it makes you sound genuine. Dahlia studied him, searching for insincerity but finding none. One dinner, she finally agreed. But I pay for myself. Kingsley didn't take her to an extravagant restaurant as she'd expected. Instead, they went to a small Italian place in her neighborhood, a family-owned establishment with checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in wine bottles. You're surprised, he noted as they settled at their table. I expected somewhere with a waiting list longer than my arm, he shrugged. I read your blog post about this place having the best carbonara in Chicago. I wanted to try it. She blinked, caught off guard. You read my blog. All 12 posts, he admitted. Your writing is as observant as your photography. Throughout dinner, Dahlia waited for the mask to slip for him to reveal the entitled millionaire she assumed lurked beneath the surface. Instead, he told her about growing up as the son of teachers, about coding in his dorm room, about the terror of success coming so quickly he hardly had time to adjust. People think money solves problems, he said, twirling pasta on his fork. It just creates different ones. Forgive me if I'm not particularly sympathetic to your mansion problems, Dahlia replied dryly. He laughed. Fair enough, but loneliness feels the same regardless of your zip code. There was something in his eyes when he said it, a vulnerability that resonated with her own experience of growing up without roots, without belonging. I grew up in foster care, she found herself saying. 7 homes in 12 years. Kingsley didn't offer pity, which she would have hated. Instead, he asked, is that why you became a photographer, to capture moments that last? No one had ever made that connection before. Maybe, she admitted. I didn't have photo albums growing up, no visual history. And now you create them for others. By the time they finished tiramisu, Dahlia had to acknowledge that Kingsley Jacobs was not what she had expected. But that didn't mean she was ready to let him into her life. At her apartment door, he didn't try to kiss her. I'd like to see you again, he said simply. I don't think that's wise, she replied. We're from different worlds. Worlds can intersect, Dahlia. They can also collide, he smiled at that. I'm willing to risk some cosmic debris. Are you? Despite her reservations, she agreed to a second date, then a third. Each time, Kingsley showed her more of himself, not the millionaire entrepreneur the world knew, but the man who called his parents every Sunday, who supported a shelter for teens aging out of foster care, who could talk for hours about astronomy and science fiction novels. But Dahlia kept her guard up, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Experience had taught her that people always left eventually. Attachment was dangerous, and the distance between their lives felt insurmountable. After a month of dating, Kingsley invited her to a benefit for the foster youth organization he supported. Dahlia agreed, but as she entered the ballroom on his arm, the whispers began immediately. Gold digger, she heard someone murmur as they passed. Wonder what trick she's using to hold his interest, said another. Kingsley seemed oblivious, but Dahlia felt every stare, every judgment. When she excused herself to the restroom, she overheard 2 women talking. Poor Kingsley, he's too trusting, she's clearly after his money. I give it 3 months before she's pregnant with an accidental baby. Dahlia's hands shook as she returned to the ballroom. This was exactly why relationships between people from different worlds didn't work. The gap was too wide, the assumptions too ingrained. I need to go, she told Kingsley abruptly. We just arrived, he said, confusion in his eyes. What's wrong? This was a mistake, all of it. She pulled away from him. I don't belong here, and we both know it. She left him standing there, hurt and bewildered, as she fled the gala. For a week, Dahlia ignored his calls and texts. She threw herself into work, photographing weddings and family portraits, trying to forget the way Kingsley looked at her like she was something precious. Then one rainy Tuesday, he showed up at her tiny studio in an unfashionable part of town. You're avoiding me, he said without preamble. I'm being realistic, she countered. This won't work, Kingsley. Why? Because some society vultures made judgmental comments. She stared at him. You heard them. Of course I heard them. I've been hearing that kind of thing my entire adult life. He stepped closer. I don't care what they think. Well, I do, she said, her voice rising. I won't spend my life being seen as the opportunist who trapped the millionaire. Is that what you think I see? It doesn't matter what you see, it's what everyone else sees. Kingsley ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So you're ending this because of what other people think. I'm ending it because it's inevitable, Dahlia replied, her throat tight. People like me don't end up with people like you, he repeated. You mean intelligent, talented, compassionate people, because that's who you are, Dahlia. You know what I mean. I know you're scared, he said quietly. Not of what others think, but of letting yourself believe this could be real. His words hit too close to home. Please leave, she whispered. For a moment she thought he might argue further. Instead, he nodded once. I'll go, but know this, I'm not giving up on you, on us. When you're ready to talk, I'll be waiting. True to his word, Kingsley didn't contact her again, but signs of his presence appeared everywhere. He commissioned her for high-profile shoots that advanced her career. He donated to arts programs at the community center where she volunteered. Not once did he use these connections to force an interaction, but his message was clear. He was still there, still waiting. 2 months passed. Dahlia's business thrived, partly due to the connections from the jobs Kingsley had sent her way, but success felt hollow without him to share it with. One evening, her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Is this Dahlia Wilson? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? This is Margaret Jacobs, Kingsley's mother. Dahlia nearly dropped the phone. Mrs. Jacobs, please call me Margaret. I hope you don't mind my calling. Kingsley doesn't know I'm doing this. Is he all right? Dahlia asked, immediate concern replacing her shock. Physically, yes. Emotionally, I'm not so sure. Margaret's voice softened. My son hasn't been himself since you two stopped seeing each other. He's always been private about his personal life, but he told us about you. You made quite an impression. I don't understand why you're calling me. Because Kingsley's birthday is this Saturday, and for the first time in 33 years, he's refusing to celebrate. He says there's nothing worth celebrating. Margaret paused. He loves you, Dahlia, and I think you might love him too. After hanging up, Dahlia sat in her apartment for hours, thinking about Kingsley, about his patience, his kindness, the way he'd never pressured her or used his wealth to impress her. He had given her space when she asked for it, supported her career from a distance, and waited. On Saturday morning, she found herself standing outside his penthouse apartment, heart pounding as she knocked on the door. Kingsley opened it, surprise evident on his face. He looked tired, with shadows under his eyes and a day's worth of stubble darkening his jaw. Dahlia, he said, her name almost a question. Happy birthday, she replied, holding out a small wrapped package. Can I come in? His apartment was minimalist but warm, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Books filled the shelves and framed photographs, many she recognized as her own work, adorned the walls. You kept my photographs, she said, running her fingers along one frame. They remind me of how you see the world, he replied simply. Why are you here, Dahlia? She turned to face him. To apologize and to explain if you'll listen. They sat on his sofa, the unopened gift between them. I've spent my life not belonging, she began. In foster homes, at school, even in my career sometimes. I learned early that attachment leads to pain, so I built walls. Then you came along and saw right through them. Is that so terrible? He asked softly. It's terrifying, she admitted. Not just because you're wealthy, though that's part of it. It's because you make me want things I've convinced myself I can't have. Like what? Permanence, security. The feeling that someone won't leave when things get difficult. Her voice wavered. My birth parents left. Every foster family sent me away eventually. Even my college boyfriend left when I couldn't afford to keep up with his lifestyle. Understanding dawned in Kingsley's eyes. And you thought I'd leave too, or worse, that I'd stay out of obligation after the novelty wore off, she nodded. The night of the benefit, hearing those women, it confirmed my worst fears, that I'd never be seen as worthy of you. Dahlia, he said, taking her hands. Those people don't know you, they don't know us, their opinions mean nothing. But they're your world. No, he interrupted firmly. They're not my world, they're just people who happen to exist in the same social circles I sometimes move through. My world is my family, my close friends, my work that matters to me. He squeezed her hands. "And you, if you'll be part of it. I've been unfair to you," she admitted. "I judged you based on your wealth, assumed you couldn't understand my life, but you've never given me reason to doubt you." "I could say the same," he replied. "You've never once asked me for anything material. Do you know how rare that is in my experience?" Dahlia smiled wryly. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both so afraid of being wanted for the wrong reasons that we almost missed what's right in front of us." "And what's that?" he asked, hope lighting his eyes. "Two people who see each other clearly, who challenge each other, who might actually be better together than apart." Kingsley smiled, then the first real smile she'd seen from him today. "So where does that leave us?" "With me asking if you're willing to give us another chance, if you still want to." In answer, he leaned forward and kissed her gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I should open your gift," he said. The package contained a hand-crafted photo album. Inside were dozens of photographs Kingsley at the gala where they'd first met, candid shots from their dates, quiet moments she'd captured when he wasn't looking. The final page held a single photograph of Dahlia herself, smiling directly at the camera. "How did you get these?" he asked, touching one image of himself laughing. "Photographers are always watching," she said. "Even when we're not working, I've been collecting these since we met." "It's perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you." That night became the first of many Dahlia spent at Kingsley's apartment. Slowly, her fears began to recede as he proved day after day that his feelings for her were genuine. He introduced her to his parents, who welcomed her warmly. He supported her career without trying to control it, and he never once made her feel less than his equal. 6 months after their reconciliation, Dahlia received an offer to photograph a prestigious international exhibition. The opportunity would advance her career significantly, but it meant 3 months traveling abroad. "You should take it," Kingsley said immediately when she told him. "It's an amazing opportunity." "But we'd be apart for 3 months," she replied, studying his face for signs of doubt. "We'll make it work," he said confidently. "I have business in Europe anyway. I could meet you in Paris, Rome, wherever you'll be." His unwavering support touched her deeply. This was a man who understood her need for independence, who celebrated her success rather than feeling threatened by it. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now after months of building trust. "I love you too," he replied, pulling her close. "And I'll love you whether you're across the table or across an ocean." The exhibition tour was a triumph for Dahlia's career. True to his word, Kingsley met her in several European cities, turning work trips into romantic getaways. In each place, she watched him navigate different cultures with ease, always respectful, always curious to learn. On her last night abroad in a small Greek village overlooking the Mediterranean, Kingsley took her to dinner at a family-owned taverna. As the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, he seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "Are you all right?" she asked as he fumbled with his water glass. "Perfect," he said, taking a deep breath. "Actually, I had a whole speech planned, but now that we're here, I'm just going to speak from the heart." He reached across the table for her hand. "Dahlia, when we met, you were afraid to trust me, and I was afraid I'd never find someone who wanted me for myself. We were both wrong and both right. Building trust takes time. It should take time. Real connection isn't immediate. It grows with each shared experience, each challenge overcome together." He slipped from his chair, kneeling beside their table. Several nearby diners noticed, smiling as they realized what was happening. "Your trust has become my greatest treasure," Kingsley continued, his voice steady now as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "More valuable than anything I've ever earned or built, and I promise to spend my life being worthy of it." He opened the box to reveal a ring elegant but not ostentatious, with a center diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires that matched her eyes. "Dahlia Wilson, will you marry me?" For a moment, she couldn't speak, overcome by emotion. This man had waited patiently for her to lower her defenses, never pushing, always understanding. He had seen her fears and loved her through them. "Yes," she finally managed, tears spilling down her cheeks. Yes, I will marry you. The small restaurant erupted in applause as Kingsley slipped the ring onto her finger and pulled her into a kiss that promised forever. Their wedding, 6 months later, was an intimate affair held at Kingsley's parents' home in the suburbs. Only close friends and family attended, no society photographers, no business associates there for appearances. Dahlia wore a simple gown that made her feel like herself, and Kingsley couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle. In their vows, they promised to continue building trust, to support each other's dreams, to remember always that their greatest strength was in their partnership. I knew from the moment you spilled champagne on me that you were different, Kingsley said, his voice carrying across the garden. You saw me, not my bank account. You challenged me, you made me wait, and in that waiting I found what I'd been searching for all along. I came into your life suspicious and guarded, Dahlia replied, squeezing his hands. You could have walked away. Instead, you showed me that patience is sometimes the greatest act of love. You waited until I was ready to believe that what we have is real. 1 year later, they celebrated their anniversary by opening the Jacobs Wilson Foundation, dedicated to supporting foster youth through education, housing assistance, and mentorship. Using Kingsley's business acumen and Dahlia's first-hand experience with the system, they created programs that address the real needs of young people transitioning out of care. At the foundation's opening, a reporter asked Dahlia what it was like to go from foster child to millionaire's wife. I'm not just a millionaire's wife, she corrected gently. I'm a photographer, a former foster youth, and now a foundation director. And my husband is more than his wealth, he's the most patient, compassionate person I know. Later that night, as they lay in bed discussing the foundation's future plans, Dahlia placed Kingsley's hand on her stomach. There's something else we should plan for, she said softly. In about 7 months, his eyes widened. Are you saying? She nodded, smiling through tears. We're having a baby. The joy that spread across his face was everything she'd ever wanted. A family of our own, he whispered, pulling her close. Our own permanence. Our child will never question belonging, Dahlia promised. They'll always know they're wanted, always know they're loved. Because of you, Kingsley said, kissing her gently. Because you showed me what matters most isn't what we possess, but who we cherish. As they held each other in the quiet darkness, Dahlia reflected on their journey, how a chance meeting had led to a love that had transformed them both. Kingsley had waited patiently for her trust, never expecting it would become his greatest treasure. And in giving that trust, she had found a home in his heart, a belonging she'd searched for all her life. Their love story wasn't about wealth or status. It was about patience, about seeing beyond appearances, about the courage to believe in something lasting. It was about finding home not in a place, but in a person who would wait as long as needed for you to open the door.